And good evening and welcome to the Health Ed meeting for September 2010. I'm Jeff Jordan, District 13. I'm chairman of our committee. It's not really my committee, it's our committee. The lady to my left is Ms. Becky Shelton, who keeps us all in order and keeps minutes and all that kind of stuff. And when things get tough, they send Becky to do the job. We're going to go around the table here. We have some new commissioners and some that are returning to this committee, and they're going to introduce themselves and they're going to give you their district, and then we'll get started. Ms. Cook?
I'm Carol Cook, District 5, the old part of Laverne.
I'm Jeff Phillips, District 17.
Chantal Suyo, District 21.
Rhonda Allen, District 11.
Brad Turner, District 10.
Will Jordan, District 3.
Thank you, commissioners, and I'm looking forward to what I hope will be a terrific year. I need a motion to approve the minutes and a second to that motion, which I'm sure is coming. Somebody help me out here.
So move on the motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, and there are none, of course. Community care is first up on the agenda. You have been handed the report from the Board of Directors, and I feel certain we always get glowing reports from out there, but luckily for us, we have Ms. Carol Cook, who is on that committee out there. And Ms. Cook, any comments? Things going well?
Things are going well now.
Profit and loss statement has been really good lately, hasn't it? Any questions or comments on the report? The mayor, of course, is also on that committee, and he is, as always, present. If not, I need a motion to approve the community care report.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Phillips. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Fourth is the health department, and I don't believe anybody came tonight from the health department. I talked with Ms. Garrett. She had no amendments this time, and she is out of town and would have sent someone. I told her that if she didn't have any amendments, that'd be fine. And I asked her about because I know that the flu season is upon us, and she said she has a plan for flu shots, which didn't surprise me a bit, and she'd be sharing that with us next meeting. So we don't have a handout from her, do we? We don't. Okay, so that finishes the health department, which gets us to Ms. Jolly and special reports. And while Ms. Jolly is coming forward, you should have had this for about, about a week perhaps. And want there are huge dollars here in various departments, and we certainly want the public to know that we have looked at this already. And Ms. Jolly is here to answer any questions, explain anything, and she's the expert, so we'll take it away.
I just reported I'm not the expert. These are the experts. The only thing, I did make a correction to page 7, the budget versus source. On the sensory lighting project, I had failed to put that we had received $1,028,665. I missed that, and so your report's incorrect on that page. And you would look down the column of the sensory lighting project, and that tells how much we've received on that project. Everything else, if you just have any questions.
On page 1, 2008 notes, $97,000. What's that, 3, and the next one, 7?
That's the that's like the LGIP accounts that we pay all this from, and that's the interest that we earn on those LGIP accounts.
Okay. I know it said earnings, but I didn't
Are there any questions from any board member for Ms. Jolly, or as Ms. Jolly just said, the experts behind her too on special projects? But she's fudging a bit. She knows where every dime is.
So moved.
Move to approve by Ms. Cook. A second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposition, there is none. And Ms. Jolly, again, another successful report. Thank you so much. Okay, the Director of Schools, Mr. Harry Gill, is here and to present his school board report, and Mr. Sandvik is with him, and Mr. Friday is with him. And don't see any board members here. Mr. Don Odom is here.
Jeff's here, but I'm going to ask that these two commissioners come up, and then if there are additional questions that Mr. Odom or Mr. Sandvik can help with, that they do so.
That is fine, Director Gill. Mr. Gill is aware, and it's a little unusual, perhaps, to say what I'm about to say, but tonight I'm going to suggest, now this is not my committee, it's our committee, and if a member desires to do something different than any motions, whatever, we'll certainly entertain those and do follow the rules like we always do. But I'm going to suggest that we absorb this information tonight from Mr. Gill, which is about a new high school, of course, at Stewart's Creek. I would assume that's been pretty well publicized, and it's a massive, of course, amount of information. It's expensive. We have new commissioners, and there will be some actual financial ramifications of this, and we need some time to study this. He understands that. I said the school board understands that, and but as I said, we can make any motion any board member desires to make when Mr. Gill finishes, and he's right here with 3 or 4 experts in the room to answer any questions. That's certainly enough from me. Mr. Gill?
Thank you, Commissioner Jordan.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I know a lot of you are new to the commission. I know this is a lot to ask at your first meeting. Might be a little bit like best way to learn to swim is throw them in the water and see if they can make it. But from the perspective of the school board, we're in dire straits with respect to the need for a high school, and I want to share some numbers with you that I think you two will find staggering, and also wonder how we're going to pull it off. And I'm not too sure that we can pull it off without an additional high school. I'd also remind you just historically that we originally had intended to open a high school in 2012, and we moved that back. Of course, we did build 2 middle schools at a substantial savings because of the economy, and also I know there would be a tax increase, obviously, to build a new high school, but I'd also remind you that we anticipate a 7 cent tax increase on the tax rate this year, but we didn't have to do that because of we were good stewards of our money, and we were able to open 2 new middle schools without any kind of tax increase. All that said, I want to ask that you follow me on this packet, and also I have a separate sheet that I want to give you in just a second to show you why it's imperative that we get a new high school. On the north end of the county, Smyrna and Laverne, and I divided these proportionately, even though Laverne probably has a few more kids than Smyrna High would have by the year 2013, but assuming that we didn't get a high school, we probably would rezone would wind up with these numbers. Currently, in the 6th through 9th grades on that end of the county, we have 4,652 total students if they were all promoted into the 9th through 12th grade by the year 2013. And there's a general assumption that the vast majority of them would be. And if 98% are promoted, there'll be a 2% of the high school that won't make it, and they'll be hanging around for another year anyway. So at any rate, by 2013, we'll have 4,652 kids on the end of the county. If they were equally dispersed, there would be 2,326 students at each of those 2 schools. Now, I would remind you that those schools were built in 1987 for 800 students. We've done 3 separate additions. Each time we've done that, we've added on 400 seats to bring them to a capacity of roughly 2,000. Which is where we are today. Now, I say 2,000, and even though they have roughly 2,000 kids, we have roving teachers and we have portables in place, and I'll get into that in just a second. So, by the year 2013, without any growth, reflecting only the students that are on that end of the county, we would have 2,326 students per school. No disputing that, period. Those kids are currently at Laverne Middle, Rock Springs Middle, Smyrna Middle, Stewart's Creek Middle, and also Thurman Francis. Now, if you start factoring in 3% growth, which we have seen over the years, by the year 2013, that number could reach 2,542 per school. And there's nowhere to put those kids, period. Plain and simple. Now, I want to pass this out to kind of re-emphasize. Pass that up, Mr. Clark, please. Shane. That we're getting these students if you look, now also, you'll get different enrollments at different times of the year. For example, if you take your enrollment at the 9th month, it's not what it is at the 1st month. The state asked that we report at the end of the 3rd month of school, because that's when we fill out what's called a preliminary report, where they calculate if we're meeting our pupil-teacher ratios, how they disperse money back to the school system. These numbers are based on the 3rd month funding period pursuant to what the state asked. Now, if you look at 2003, 2004, that was the last year we opened a high school. We opened Siegel High School. That year we had 9,534 9th through 12th graders that year. Now, if you reflect down to now we're not to the 3rd month, but the numbers will pretty much parallel what we have. Right now we have 12,858 9th through 12th graders, high schoolers. So we have picked up 3,324 high schoolers during that period of time. Okay, that said, we've done 5 separate additions at Oakland, Riverdale, Smyrna, Laverne, and Blackman, each of which accommodated roughly 350 to 400 more kids. And we'll use for argument purposes 400. That still means that we've added 1,324 kids beyond what we added capacity-wise. Now, if you look at those numbers, if you go from, for example, 2003 to 2004, you'll see the first year we picked up almost 600. The next year we picked up 700 high schoolers. The next 600. Next year 600. Next year 300. Next year 200. This year about 330 more. So if you average 3 or 4% growth per year, you're talking 300, 400, 500 more kids per year. Now, if we continue to grow like that over the next 3 years, I think you can figure probably 4,300 kids since we last built a high school. And to me, that's pretty compelling evidence in itself that we've got to build a high school. Now, all that said, if you drop down to Blackman, I've got, and I want you to keep that for your own personal reference, because I think that is highly reflective of how we're growing. If you drop down to Blackman High School, their current 6th through 9th grade enrollment is, if you promoted them, they have 596 9th graders that will be seniors when we open this new school, and 1,711 6th through 8th graders, which is a total of 2,307 students that they would have that first year. If you factor in 3% growth, obviously they'll go to 25-21. Now, Blackman, the mayor sent me a correspondence today with some numbers. They've grown at a much faster rate than 3%. So you can anticipate those guys growing at an even higher rate than that. I would say this, they are better equipped to handle 30 portables than Laverne or Smyrna would. Smyrna and Laverne are both landlocked, which means there is no place to put portables. That said, I want you to drop back to, there are some aerial photos. There's one of Laverne High School. Did this factor in growth or without growth? I think it was with growth.
With growth, yes, sir.
With growth, you can see where we would have to locate. Are they all double portables?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you can see where we would have to locate those portables at Laverne High School. They would be actually located in a parking lot, which obviously would create a particular dilemma with respect to parking. And I think all of us understand when you put trailers out there, they don't have water, they don't have plumbing, they don't have, kids have to travel from, say they take 7 periods, 7 classes per day. They're what we call departmentalized. They have to go, after first period they have to move, they have to move, they have to move. They're going in and out of the building in snow and rain and other inclement weather. It's just a terrible situation, not to mention they're not very safe and they're hard to monitor for the school administration. But that is reflective of 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24 additional portables at Laverne High School up potentially stuck in that parking lot out there. And there's no other place to put them, period. Now, also, I might add that the Corps will not support that kind of population. The Corps being the cafeteria in particular, and also the library and other facilities. Smyrna High School, and again, I want to say, right now, it appears that there would be more at Laverne than there would be at Smyrna unless we go back and rezone the middle schools, which I assume that we would do. So in retrospect, you probably would be hauling 6 or 8 of these portables out of that parking lot back over to Smyrna High School. But you see, Smyrna's in the same dilemma. They would stick theirs right out back between the ball fields, and you can probably tag a few more onto the left side of that view. Now, we've anticipated, if you look to the second page, it's got some enrollment numbers that you can check out. Here, we can put that sheet up. I want you to take a peek at this real quick. This little sheet that folds out. Ms. Clardy put this together. Currently, with the existing enrollment and without any kind of increase, Blackman does not have any portables, but they've got 0 roaming teachers and 3 science labs that are not in labs. But now look what happens to them next year. They'll have 5 portable classrooms, 7 additional the following year, 3 the next year, and they'll need 15 portables, according to our figures, by the year 2013, 2014, right? Okay, dropping down to Laverne. They currently have 7 teachers that are displaced. They do not have a classroom. They have 6 rooms that have been converted into classrooms. You know, they use hall storage. They'll use anything they can to put students in class. Also, there are 8 portable classrooms that are currently in use at Laverne High School. Now, any additional increase in the enrollment results in more portables being purchased. Smyrna High School, currently there are no roaming teachers. They have 5 classes in non-classroom rooms and 6 in portable classrooms. They anticipate additional classrooms, and they're reflected here, as many as 16 or 18 over the next few years. Ms. Clardy thinks we're not in a position now to move portables. What we've done over the last several years, we've moved portables when possible. As we've built new schools, as we've done additions, we've moved things around. We don't have the luxury of moving any more portables. That's off the table. What we got to do now, we got to go in and buy them, which if we don't get this high school, we could be looking at as much as anywhere between 1.8 and 2.4 or $5 million for portables. We currently have in use, 135 portables across the system. Proud to say that during my tenure and during most of you guys' tenure, we've only had to add 10 portables because we've got with the program and gotten schools and gotten additions done. And I'm certainly hoping we don't backslide and start now where we have to start adding back portables, because historically when you get them, you don't get rid of them. But if we use single classrooms, we're talking about $2.5 million. If we use double portables, will probably cost us $1.8 million. As I said the other day when we did our tour, at the high school level, they can accommodate anywhere from 30 to 33 people per class, kids per class. But a double portable won't hold that many. So in retrospect, you're better served with single portables. They have more square footage, and they allow the teacher a little wiggle room. But another way you solve that is you don't put as many kids out there, which results in more teachers being hired, which is more of an expense to the county taxpayer. I'd ask you also to flip back here, and I'll answer some questions in a minute if you have any. Tentatively, this doesn't reflect growth, does it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If we opened in 2013, based on our 6th through 9th grade enrollment, everybody follow me? Promoting them to the 9th through 12th. If we opened these schools in the year 2013, Laverne High School would wind up with 1,934 kids. Smyrna High would end up with 1,877. What would happen, we'd take 601 out of Smyrna and send them back to Stewart's Creek, but then we take some out of Blackman and send them back to Smyrna. And this is all tentative, and I know the issue of the poverty rate in the schools is going to come up. We haven't done any official zoning, and we'll try every way in our power to try to disperse high poverty students in any given direction to try to proportionally balance the enrollment in each school, or the free reduced population of each school. But we would open Stewart's Creek with 1,739. Blackman would have 1,777. And we would get, hopefully, where's Riverdale on here?
Down there, sir.
Yeah, what were their numbers? We were going to get, we'll get Riverdale back to 1,900 too by taking the Cason Lane Road, putting them back at Blackman. So this is the best source of relief for Riverdale as well. So all those kids, all those schools would have anywhere from 1,700 to 1,900 students in there, which is really very near capacity and gives you a little, or the luxury of adding some and absorbing 2 or 3 years worth of additional growth. And I know you're not going to take a vote on it tonight. I know this is a lot for you to stomach in one night, but I wanted to show you where we're heading and show you that our numbers aren't inflated, that they're here, and that we've been patient. But we got to have a high school. It's plain and simple.
We haven't mentioned Central Magnet. How many high schoolers will be there when it's completely ramped up in 2 more years?
Of course, you'll roll them up.
Yeah.
We've got the 9th and 10th grade. What is that, 150, Don, from across county?
We estimated in as full as 70-20 or something like that.
720.
So you'll
So that is some help.
well, some help.
Yeah.
But what's going to happen? I mean, your 10th and your 9th and 10th graders are there. So
Yeah, I know, but that's still out of that
Yeah.
total number of growth.
That'd be some help.
That's 720 right there.
Some
of
help,
help
but I mean,
right there.
like your 6th and like we're 6th through 9th, so you're just rolling them up. I mean, it's not going to be a lot of help, but maybe a little.
The numbers on the map page that show the movement, just so you have an idea, show those Central Magnet students being taken out if they continue to just graduate out.
Because, yeah, but they're from all over, so there's
That's
some
true.
kids out of every zone.
And basically the answer to that is I take them literally geographically based where they're from and just remove them from that zone.
And Mr. Clark is going to tell you that there's not a better time to build a school than there have been right now with respect to cost savings. We anticipate, I can't remember what we built Rockville for, but we shaved didn't we, as much as $5 million, I recall. I want to put out a number that's not accurate.
5.9 total off of both schools.
So, okay. Because the economy desperately needs work locally, and we did put people back to work. It was a help to them, and we anticipate considerable savings over if we waited 2 or 3 years out. And again, I don't see how you can wait 2 or 3 years out, plain and simple.
When we get too far away from the portables, I wanted to ask, when we built the 2 new middle schools, and essentially shut down the 6, 7, 8 at Las Casas, Kittrell, and Buchanan, we had portables on all 3 of those campuses, did we not? And what happened to those portables?
We moved 12 portable classrooms this summer. Some went to Laverne, and they went to various schools, none in the city, thankfully. but to several other county schools around. And I don't recall exactly where, but there was 11 that was moved.
We've been quoted various figures it costs to move them. It's $10,000-$12,000 just to move one. Is that right? I don't
That's
really
correct.
Move and set up, yeah. Every time you move, you build ramps, you have to, computer usage, electrical work. I would say this, Mr. Odom and I, every spring, the principals submit a list to us requiring X number of portables if needed. And in order not to continue to purchase portables, we're real stingy with them. And say, well, could you get by with 2 rather than 3 or 4? And oftentimes they'll ultimately say yes, which is why you see the roving teachers pushing carts around the building. And but again, it's been a cost savings to you guys. Plus, we just don't want to get in the portable business. It's not good.
Before Mr. Clardy addresses the construction part of this, are the questions for Mr. Gilwright come to mind right now?
What's the lifespan of a portable?
I guess it's on
Forever.
yeah, around here a long time.
Got some duct taping, I'm going.
Yeah,
I can move the first one in when I was born, Ron.
yeah.
I don't know what.
We've probably got some that are 25 years old, and we move them and repair them as long as they don't fall apart on the road.
Okay.
When we're relocating them, we're on a pretty strenuous program now. We try to repair them once we get them replaced and set, repaint the outside, clean them up, do any HVAC. So portables are probably in better shape than they've been in a long time in Rutherford County, although they're still not like being in a classroom.
Right, I agree. Of course, one of the obvious concerns, and you kind of touched on it a minute ago, that I'm hearing from the folks out of Smyrna is as soon as Stewart's Creek opens, it's automatically going to put Smyrna into a high poverty rate. And I know the poverty rate's already pretty high there anyway. But just, I don't have a magic answer to that. I'm sure you probably don't either. But what are some things, as director that you would do, or you've seen other school systems do, that maybe help, just make sure that school continues to have the resources it needs to be successful, knowing that the challenges they're going to be faced with.
Yeah. Of course, we have a number of high poverty schools that are high performing, especially at the elementary level. Mm-hmm. Ideally, there would be a balance across the system. At the same time, you try to promote neighborhood schools, and when the neighborhood around the school is high poverty, it presents a real dilemma for you. But what we typically try to do in a school that has a higher poverty level is to staff it with maybe more teachers, maybe put more EAs, maybe do things like that. But at the end of the day, we're not going to give up on trying to find some ways, short of busing people for long distances, to try to make sure that Stewart's Creek has a higher poverty rate maybe than you're hearing from people on the street. But I would say, I'll be the first to admit, it's going to be difficult to do. At the same time, Dirk Ash, Principal Laverne, made a comment to me the other day. He said, well, I'd much rather have 1,900 kids at 60% free reduced than I would 2,500 at 45, because we just can't manage it.
Right.
So
there's the downside of the mega school too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Which is why McGavick got out of the mega school business, and we don't need to get there. But we'll do our best to try to reduce it. I don't have certainly not a miracle worker, don't have all the answers, but I can tell you the board's committed to trying to do as best possible.
On this page with the portable classrooms, for the current ones that are listed now where they're meeting in non-classrooms, is that for projected out, or that's actually what's happening in the 2010, 2011 school year, where it says just for Smyrna it's 5 classes are in non-classroom rooms right now?
Yes.
That's what's happening right now?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And on the Blackman numbers, okay, I think I'm seeing here, you did count in the Murfreesboro City Schools kids that we were promoting up to that.
Yes, ma'am.
Actually, I believe our city school enrollment's up 6th grade considerably in the midst of them. Yeah.
Well, if something occurs to someone, we can come back to Director Gill. He's not going anywhere, I don't think. Mr. Clardy, you want to address the construction part of this and possible cost, or however you want to do it, Stan?
Well, at this point, as Mr. Gill had spoken earlier, on because of the timing on Whitworth Buchanan and Oakland Middle School, we saved a total of $5.9 million as compared to Rockvale Middle School. That's how much construction went down, or the bids came in lower than Rockvale.
Excuse me, that's on each, isn't it? On each one?
Well, it was the savings on the contract, but we were still below the budget.
Okay.
See, that we'd actually predicted. This is
okay.
So you got the savings back from the contract plus the savings on the budget, and we adjusted those prices accordingly when we came to get the financing for that. And we would expect the savings to be at least the same or greater on Sturts Creek High School. We prepared that site pretty much when we built the two other schools. The County Commission, the citizens have already paid for most of the site work on that particular site. And we're ready to go with a minimal amount of grading. We can start digging footings. And one of the things that people have a tendency to overlook is that if things continue, we think that we can't rule out inflation or even hyperinflation if the economy doesn't start to, heal at a faster rate. So it's a great time to build, and the contractors are hungry, they're looking for work, they're needing work, and of course we bond that out so that we're protected on the pricing that we get. We'll be using Siegel's plan, and we've been updating that. We've updated our schools as we've gone along on the middle schools and elementary schools. The Siegel school would be updated, but it would still be at the 3% design fee that all of our prototype schools are. So instead of 5%, we'd be at 3% on that. We've also talked with the town of Smyrna. They're not going to require a building permit. And, I was looking at some things here from prices from other areas. I did a report to the board a while back. We have consistently maintained a very reasonable square footage price on our buildings here in Rutherford County. And it's due to a lot of the design modifications that we've done on not overbuilding for what we needed. Lowering the ceilings in a lot of places, decreasing the building envelope, used common dimensions throughout the buildings, all of those types of things. And on top of that, we've got a metal roof and the geothermal, and in this high school, we want to go ahead and include all the lighting sensors and maybe even some greener solar heating, some quick payback things that we can do maybe on the sports facilities that would save us money. And maybe even talk to the town of Smyrna about getting our repurified water out there for watering, just as we're doing at Siegel now, saving several $1,000s a year out there on watering the sports facilities. But to get back to this, Bedford County just built a couple schools. Their high school cost them, community high school was $145 a square foot. We were right at 88 or 89 on the last two schools that we built. Sumner County, they had Station Camp Elementary at 117, Portland Gateway 135, Westmoreland Elementary 135, come on down to Wilson County, Watertown Elementary School 123, Williamson County's Nolensville School was $140, Spring Station Middle School was $137. And again, Oakland, these are with the sites taken out. I took the site out so we could get to the pure building cost. Our pure building cost on Oakland Middle School was $87.38, and our Whitworth Buchanan was $89.54. With the site included, even in they were at about $104 or so. Whitworth Buchanan had a high school site, a much larger area, and it was at $121 total cost. So you can see that we're stretching the money, and with the economy down like it is, we think we can really save some money again. So it's a great time to build. We need to, and it's absolutely important to get the design started on the building now. We've got, as most of you recall, the issues that we had getting financing on the two new middle schools. Well, that puts a real squeeze on us when we can't get the thing started, and people still, the citizens, the administration, the commission, everyone expects us to open on time. And we kind of got started a couple months late on those schools. We still opened on time and managed not to spend money, but it's a real struggle. And the more you push the envelope, the more likely you are to fail sooner or later. And we just want to continue to get them open, not have to open at Christmas or open 2 months late and just confuse everyone. So we need working drawings by the first of the year. We've already had our first peer group meeting. So we need to get started and turn the architect loose if we're going to open in 2013, August. The design would be complete by the 1st of May, and then a bid opening would be the middle of June, with starting construction at the end of June. So we would need to start construction by this coming June 2011.
It's about a two-year project, isn't it, to build it?
It is. We really, on my original schedule, we need approval from the commission by the 10/14/2010 meeting. And so we can get started on their design. And then that, also with that, before construction starts, from that date, that would give 8 months to go to the bond market. In that period in there, while we're doing the design, then the money could be borrowed before we start construction in June. And even since it's a 2-year construction period, the borrowing could be done in 2 borrowings or whatever. Of course, that's I'm just throwing that out to get people thinking about it a little bit. And then the last thing I want to discuss is I had some questions about the Lebanon High School that was recently bid, and R.G. Anderson's building it. They built Oakland Middle School for us as the latest project. They also built Rockville. That one, a pretty raw building price, came in at $110 a square foot. And you have to add another $1.4 million discretionary on that, and then it had about another $500,000 of allowances. And then for some reason, the school system is buying their own roofing materials over there. It's 2.6, which is, in my opinion, that's a lot of liability to assume to have to carry we for life of the school. And then there's another $1.5 million in landscaping. That price did not include, it excluded the scoreboards, the gymnasium bleachers, the basketball goals, the auditorium seating, the stage curtains and rigging, no exterior grandstands, and no exterior press box. And there's some other items, I haven't seen the plans, but marked not in contract throughout the plans. I know we can do that good and even a lot better, because our schools, as Siegel is, it's plain, comfortable, and functional. And that's the way we like to keep them. That's the reason we like working with the architect we have, because they're not really interested in building a monument to themselves. They want to do what we want done. So
Actually, to piggyback that, Mr. Clardy, if you look at what we've built over the past several years, we've really done a simple design, straight hallways, wings straight out off off the center hallways, with a stock roof design that can be interchangeable, and we'll do the same thing with Siegel. He mentioned the peer group, which is where he and Mr. Odom meet with teachers and administrators and look at what's there versus what could be there, to kind of tweak the design and also fit the needs of the kids. So, we're doing what we can, is the point you're making, to keep the price down. And I think testimony to that is what Mr. Clardy said.
You've heard for years that it's always cheaper to build up than out. What's the reason we don't do that?
Well, we do in high
It
school.
is a two-story.
It is a two-story.
Yeah.
Okay.
high school's two-story. The elementary schools are a little tougher for the
Yeah.
little guys to deal with.
But you also, you got to be real careful about building a high school too big, because as Mr. Odom reminded one day, Mr. Carl, when he was superintendent, talked about, if you build them too big, you'll be paying for transportation costs for 50 years to haul them all, haul them there. And 2,000 is a good sized school, and still with that, you have a pretty good perimeter. You got to haul kids in there. So when it comes, when you mentioned mega high schools, it's dangerous when neighborhoods get old and kids are gone, that you have to bring kids from long distances,
Right.
pay for it. And our transportation budget, I don't know what it is. What is it? What's our transportation, about $12 million a year, Jeff?
I think so.
You're supposed to know that.
Mr. Clardy, I have another question. You said that Smyrna wasn't requiring a building permit. What about an impact fee?
No impact fees either. They've been very good to work with us up there. Mr. O'Neill and Mayor Spivey kind of set the precedence.
Okay.
And I spoke with Mr. O'Neill yesterday. And they just want a letter from us, and they'll be good to go.
Okay. And then as you do a lot of the long-range planning that you do, is it anywhere on your radar to look at doing a vocational high school? Because that's another thing I'm hearing a lot about, is if you're going to have these areas where you've got the higher poverty kids, which are less likely to go to college, then we need to be adding more and more vocational skills for them. And I know I can speak to that firsthand. My husband, we own a heating and air business, and we have it because of everything he learned at Smyrna High. So I live that every day. I know how real and tangible that is. So
First of all, there's been a interest at the board level to do that. Matter of fact, we concluded a study about 4 or 5 years ago about building a central vocational, high school comparable to like the Magnet School, where we draw kids from across the county. Part of your dilemma is, it was for like 1,000-seat vocational high school. It was going to be somewhere in the vicinity of $40 million. We're talking about expensive, in part because students are assigned at a 20-to-1 based pupil-teacher ratio versus a 33 or 32 or 31 ratio. You have to sometimes have specialty equipment, larger rooms, obviously. But each of our high schools do have vocational opportunity or VOTEC opportunities or CT opportunities for kids. Of course, it's gravitating now more towards criminal justice, culinary arts, and stuff like that. But it would be good if someday, and I don't know where the wealth's going to come from, if we could build the school you're talking about. It would be wonderful for kids across the county.
I'd also just like to respond to that we have Mrs. Kay Nixon is working with Mr. Odom at this point. They're both part of our peer group. And we're looking at the career technical offerings at this point. And we're looking to evaluate the cost, as soon as we start getting them, on how far we can go and what we can offer in the VOTEC area on this particular high school. So there's some opportunities at this time to put in a few things that are maybe not offered at other areas in the county.
Right. I'm even thinking, I don't even know if this is possible, but I'm thinking about is there any way to create partnerships with some of the junior colleges and maybe offer that, where maybe you're not necessarily bricks and mortar, you know, but I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking outside the box a little bit.
We're already doing that with,
Yeah.
Motlow. Yeah, Motlow and Liverpool, yeah. Yeah.
Mr. Phillips?
Mr. Chairman, I'm old, Harry, and I'm getting ready to go on a fixed income here before you know it.
I'll be right with you.
I don't know if you'll be right with me, but and one of the things that I really don't know if we can get into the dollars and cents of it that much, but Mr. Clardy, you presented a whole number of square footage figures for surrounding counties. Is that an inclusive number? Is that all of them, or is it just some that you picked out for various reasons or other? Is that all inclusive?
That's all the people that responded to my emails and things.
Okay.
And that is Bedford, and I tried to pick counties that were close enough so we'd have a realistic look at it. And that's Bedford County, Sumner County, Wilson County, Williamson County, and then, of course, Rutherford County.
So everybody that reported
is on the list.
That's on that list. The Siegel High School cost, I believe it was 2003, maybe that school opened, was that right?
Yes, sir.
What was the cost per square foot on that one?
Just over $70.
Okay, $70. And you didn't come right out and say it, but what is your anticipated rate for Stewart's High School? What are you anticipating?
I think the base would be around 110 plus the stadium, all the stadium work. Now, we're talking just the building itself at 110.
And if the economy wasn't the way that it was, what would you anticipate that to be?
Maybe 135 or 140.
I think that, we're talking about spending a whole lot of money. 70 versus 110. My math is, I don't have a PC in front of me, and I can't figure it up, but roughly that's 65 to 75% more than what it cost to build Siegel a number of years ago, and that's a lot of money. And I understand things have gone up. I really do. I understand that. But what are we kind of hoping that this building project will accomplish? And is there other building projects that you guys are going to come right back with next year and the year after and the year after and the year after? Are we anticipating a wave of things?
And let me answer that. No. I mean, first of all, I like to think that we've been conscientious with respect to trying to do this. I mean, we wanted to ask for a pylon at high school last year, but it was unreasonable to do so. The board realizes that we can get by for a year or two without something else. We've got a building plan in place. I know we talked about an addition at Eagleville. At some point, we need another elementary school, which is the cheapest of all the schools to build. But I mean, I think if we can get this going, we find a way to hold off another year and give you and the taxpayer a break. But we do think, we think it's critical that we get this school. I mean, I just don't see how we're going to manage anything. Now, that doesn't, you've heard me say that, and I'm not avoiding your question, but I do think that the board will be receptive to finding every way to delay any subsequent beginnings.
So, let me rephrase what you just said. There's no more building coming after this one.
We had an addition to Eagleville that I'm sure if you're an Eagleville, if you're on the board, you may want that, but I think we can hold off on that. Although we got an Eagleville teacher and a commissioner over here knows how bad they need it. You know, they're in a portable business. But I think we can get by for a year or two without an elementary school or a middle school as well.
Okay. At that 110, what would be the anticipated cost? Is it?
Well, that's pure building cost. You have to put the design fee in, fixtures, furniture. The design fee is about 1.3 million. And
give him a bottom line.
Yeah, just a rough.
45.
We're asking for, in our original budget, we had 49,976,000, but we're anticipating to be between 45 and 50, so maybe 47 in that area.
Okay.
How much would you need to start to do the design? It seems to me like a few years ago on one of the schools, we approved the design. It gave the commission time to digest everything, and we could always put the design on the shelf if it was not approved in a timely manner in time to go to bid and all in the spring. Go and start the design and decide sometime between now and February or something like that on if we're going to proceed. If we didn't proceed, hold the design. If you know for a fact this is the next high school, is the board
Yes.
totally settled on Stewart's Creek and not Rockvale on the next high school?
Yes,
I
absolutely.
mean, personally, I would like to know how much we would need, where you get that money, and I could probably, speaking as one commissioner here, support moving forward with the design and making a hard decision later on in the winter. Because if this is the next high school, we might as well be designing.
I agree.
That's just one person speaking.
Roughly 1.3 million, right, Jeff?
Yes, sir.
Where would you suggest getting that money from at this point in time? Ending fund balance?
Internal borrowing within the
Such
building
as we've done
program
before.
for now.
We wouldn't have to go to bond market or anything like that at this point in time.
At this point, we would not know, Commissioner.
That's just me thinking out loud, that's all that is, but we have done that before.
And it's because of the sharing issue, it would be largely shared money that we would be using. So we'd want to ultimately fund it with shared
You'd
money.
have to put that, would you use shared money on a high school?
I'm sorry, ultimately fund it with unshared
Yeah,
money.
you'd have to go back and replace that money and work that out.
So you're making a motion, or you're thinking about making a motion?
If that's accurate enough to be a motion, I'll make that motion to proceed with the design and with utilizing internal borrowing and make the decision at a later date whether to proceed with the actual construction.
Okay, you've heard
For
Commissioner
a school or
For this
for
high
this school?
For the Stewart's Creek High School. Because they'd have to design it site-specific. You can't design it for another spot. You'd have to design this high school. That would get the ball rolling, but would still give us the opportunity to put the brakes on, or you could hold that plan 3 years if you had to, I would think.
You want to read that, please?
Proceed with design work utilizing internal borrowing for the Stewart's Creek High School.
Thank you, Ms. Shelton. That motion will need a second from someone.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Soriano. Any discussion from board members?
I'm not sure it's discussion, but Commissioner Jordan, my concern with going forward with that, it's almost us approving that process that we actually want to spend that money at some point in time, and I'm not sure I'm ready to do that right now. I think maybe that what we talked about earlier is that we're not going to be voting on whether to do it up or down, and to me, an affirmative vote is accomplishing what we decided not to do, and I'm a little uncomfortable with that.
I'm just trusting the school board that that's our next school, whether it be started in spring of 2011 or spring of 2012. And I have a lot of faith in the school board and staff, and if that's our next school, I can digest designing. I wouldn't vote tonight to proceed with construction. And I'm not saying I'll support construction next spring at this point in time, but unless building codes change drastically, our plan will be in place. and whenever we do approve it, we can move forward. And I saw no hesitancy in the director here in saying, that's the next school, that's the school we're gonna build.
We actually had that discussion at the board meeting. Everybody's solid behind it. There was a little skepticism by a couple of board members, but they too now have seen the light, so to speak, with respect to where it needs to go. And I'd say this to Commissioner Phillips, with all due respect, it does free us to start making our plans, because as Mr. Clardy said, we've got a timeline right now that's pretty strict with respect to getting it done, because it does take 2 years, and you know, it's going to be a push to get it done. And as Commissioner Jordan says, I mean, worst case scenario, commission votes it down and says we're going to delay a year or two, and we got the plan, it's in place, it's ready to move forward. So let's just say we won't take it as though you've approved the construction tonight, that simply you've given us the latitude to move forward with the design, so we don't get too far behind the 8 ball.
According to what Mr. Clardy said, if they don't have it approved for design by October 14th, I believe was the commission meeting, and we're basically going to say tonight we're not going to build that school by 2013 if we don't do something.
That's right. That would, according to...
Of course, we always seem to get these drop dead dates, which is, not mean to slam you guys, but every time we get a school, it's got to be approved right now. And I told you, or at least somebody told you on the middle school, let's not do this again. But here we are again saying, and so...
I'd rather for us to come back 30 days from now. Let us digest this a little bit. Let us do some calling. Let us digest some of this and see how we come out with it and what's going to come. And that's 30 days, and that's not going to put you off.
According to
It's
him,
going
it
to put
is.
us off 30 days, when October the 14th today.
It was 30 days ago, too, when we had meeting. You
Well,
know.
according to Mr. Clardy, they need to be started by the October, in timeline with October commission meeting. That month could put them out of their window.
The problem is we need to have the architect to start putting together the floor plans in sections, so the peer group for each section can start reviewing it to make sure, and then there will still be a lot of stuff to go through. But, he's going to be expecting a payday at some point, so I don't want to get him strung out there doing work and then not be able to pay him. But we've always tried to work to, under the commission guidelines, to try to do the best for everyone involved, and that means us being flexible, and I think we all have to be flexible in getting that done to meet our deadline.
And just a quick comment, I mean, and I say this respectfully, I mean, I know it's a big step to take, but we can digest all we want and we can call all we want. The fact is, we could have upwards of 1,000 people, high schoolers, stuck out there in portables in 3 years, period, end of story. And we can't, I mean, what are we willing to take? I mean, are we willing to do that? When we're about coming down the pipe, Mr. Odom could expand on this, are from really stringent academic guidelines that whereby many of our schools could be on high priority schools, targeted schools. We need to create the best atmosphere we possibly can. These kids are here. They're going to be here. I truly hope that you'll at least approve design. Even if you come back later and decide you're not going to do it, which I think would be catastrophic to the school board. I don't personally see a reason to wait. I mean, this is something we got to do eventually anyway. Let us go forward with this.
Will, when does the budget committee meet? This has to,
The Thursday before the commission meeting. If the commission meeting's on the 14th, it'll be on the 7th. I mean, I just heard that date.
so this has to go before budget, before it goes for the committee. Is it possible does our finance director, does the mayor's office, have they been presented with this type of information?
I've met with the mayor.
The financial impact, and could that be explained and how it fits in with our tax strategy over the next couple of years. Could that be explained at the Budget Committee as to what the impact of this would be in conjunction with spending strategies on bond issues that are already out there over the next couple of years? Could this be explained at budget as to what the financial impact would be?
I would think so. Would it be out of order for the mayor? I'm not the chairman here, but
No.
get the mayor to join us and his insight on his support or non-support for the new high school and his insight?
The mayor is well aware that he can jump in at any time he wants to, including now.
That was a slow day. Might as well jump in on
He
this.
didn't do anything all day long.
Let me just ask one question first of clarification. Mr. Gill, you said we could get by 1 or 2 years without building an elementary school. 1 or 2 years, is that from now, or is that from after we get this high school built?
We've got a building plan in place. I don't think we've got anything on the immediate horizon. If I'd known I was going to be asked that, I would have brought the 5-year plan, but I don't think, I'm sure nothing's in the works for next year, and I don't think anything's in the works for the following years, Gary. Or Jeff, do you guys remember?
I've got a plan here.
Our portables at Siegel Middle now.
Siegel High School.
That's it for right now, isn't it?
Yeah. August 13th.
So are you telling us then that you won't be asking, in all probability, for a new school between now and the completion in 2013 if this were to be approved for this high school? Is that a fair statement? I mean, I think that's important as to how we look at the whole picture.
I mean, if we have what if we have 1,700 students moving here next year?
I understand.
Okay, well, no, I mean, you asked a question, let me answer. I mean, there have been years where we've grown by 1,800 or 1,900 kids. I mean, it's hard for me to give that kind of assurance. If we're picking up 600 or 700 kids, we can probably absorb them. If we picked up 1,800, that would change the building program. So, I mean, I feel, I'm not the school board, but I feel pretty confident we could get by for a year or two without an elementary school, probably 2. And then, as you say, Mayor, if we're down here, it just takes 9 months to build one, we may come down here in August of 2013 and say we got to have one. But I mean, I can commit to you, I think everybody on the board realize how crucial it is that we get the high school built, and out of respect for you guys and the taxpayers, we'll hold off as long as possible to build another school.
Okay, I mean, I understand that and I respect that. I know you can't predict whether we're going to continue at 2.5% or whether it's going to go back to 6%.
Yes.
I know that, but right now it's decreased over the last couple of years and less than 3% growth. So in the event, if it were to hold there, there's some probability we wouldn't have to build another elementary school, hopefully. I'd like to commend the school board for a lot of great things. I mean, you've heard, and I agree with what they've said. They've come up with a simple, functional design. It is a great time to build. And yes, the opportunity is before us. And even though I don't think the numbers are quite as strong and demanding as they indicate, they have made major effort to review their numbers and to work their numbers and massage those numbers. They've reduced them from the first news article from 2,900 to 2,500 students projected. And I think that might be just a little bit high, but in any event, we're going to have growth. And I agree that the high school is the priority. And I even agree with them that their choice of the location is something I don't have anything to do with, but they've made a great choice there. So the only thing I'm concerned about is how we're going to fund the operating cost. Capital cost, we can manage, and I know this is going to be the best opportunity, the best time, just like it was for those middle schools, capital cost. We can manage the capital cost that's going to be required to pay for this. And I believe Mr. Gill called back with a little message saying it's going to take $3 million of new reoccurring money to operate the school. So we have to be prepared, and that $3 million in probably today's money, that may go up a little bit just with inflation. It normally would be expected to. So somehow we have to find a way to either grow ourselves with new revenue over the next 3 years to find this $3 million, or we have to have a tax increase.
Is that $3 million above and beyond the same kids being in a bunch of portables at the other schools? Or is that how much it'd be at that school? Because you're going to have added expense at your other schools if you've got those same number of children scattered throughout them.
You just have to ask them that question. I mean,
don't know
that's,
that.
that's their number. I don't know.
I would think it'd be somewhere in between.
Yeah.
Because you've got cost per pupil, then you've got core operating facilities for cafeterias and libraries and office staff and the janitorial and stuff like that. But
Yeah, you
I don't know,
obviously have to expand your services.
Is that, I've heard the $3 million number for the high school, but how much of that is pushed back to the other high schools if those kids are there?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well, I don't know, they can project that number. That's just the number they projected as what we would need for new revenue to actually open that school, in addition to whatever the other revenue costs, the other operating costs would be, so. That's the only thing I'm concerned about. They're exactly right. The core facilities in these high schools won't continue to support more students. That's true already, and we're going to have to address that. So I think we need to be in a position to be prepared, if it takes that, to find the revenue, and that's going to be something the commissioners will have to determine how that's going to happen. I would love for the economy to rebound enough over the next 3 years to where we would have a substantial part of that money just in new money. And it might very well do that. I just don't know that we can say that with any surety. But once we embark upon this journey, we have to be prepared to see the end of it. So we need to be prepared and committed to get the money to do this if we go forward. And right now, again, our economy is making some improvements. We know full well that the July sales tax revenues is almost equivalent now to what it was in 2008. We're just about back to where we were. And if we can continue to make some gradual improvements over a 2-year period, 2.5-year period really, we could have some substantial ability to fund this. And we just hope that's the case. Right now, so many of our people are struggling. It's really difficult for them to know how they're going to help us with if we have to put a property tax increase on. And that's the only thing I'm concerned about is increasing the property tax. And that would be the only other source we have if the actual revenue is not generated, but just an economic improvement in the whole economy here.
My questioning with the Budget Committee was trying to deal with that because especially new commissioners that are coming aboard, if we knew what the at least the ballpark financial impact would, then voting to go forward with this high school, we would know as a commission that we're committing to that financing, even if it meant a property tax increase. So we wouldn't want a new commissioner, all of the new commissioners that are here, voting to build this school, and then when it come time to pay for it, no, we're not going to vote for a tax increase, because committing to this could very well be committing to a tax increase. And that's the reason that I was so interested in the financial impact of all of this, so we could present a picture, a better picture to all of us as commissioners, especially the newer commissioners. And there's 7 of these guys that would really want to know that potentially approving this is going to cost us as taxpayers of the citizens of Rutherford County this amount of money. And some of us that have been around a long time know that. Voting for this could very well be voting for this amount of tax increase. And I don't want us not having a clear enough picture. And that's the reason I was asking that. Is it possible that the Finance Department, Mr. Mayor, and we could do a decent job in this is what will be out over the next couple of years. With this included, this is the potential that we're facing as far as additional taxes. I'm not saying that it's not something that we can't do or won't do, but what I am saying is that I want that picture.
Well, we can certainly give projections on that based on whatever numbers they tell us they need for new operating money.
Okay.
We won't create that number. I want to say one more thing that I had a note on here. They mentioned a while ago the new stringent academic guidelines that are coming before all school systems in Tennessee. And I really seriously believe they're the experts, Mr. Gill, Mr. Odom, and all these people. I don't believe we have enough resources to really make the progress we need to make to accomplish these things they're putting in place in front of us now. I think the school board is going to need new money for new programs that maybe we don't even know what they are yet, to really get our arms around handling and taking control of the processes that will actually make these students perform at the levels that they're going to be required to perform.
I think that's likely true, and I'm going to add one thing to what you said before we get back to the Commissioner Jordan's motion, and that is that it's entirely possible that the school year is going to be lengthened as well within a year or two. I don't think there's any question that they're going to make an effort. If that's true, then they're going to have to be heated and cooled, and students are going to be taught, etc. And that's just going to add to what you just said. I don't think there's any question that's going to happen, but hasn't been done in 3 decades, has it?
Not to my knowledge.
175 to 180. I imagine this will be probably maybe 190 or even 200, but I don't know that. Let's get back here on point on Commissioner Jordan's motion. And are there questions on that particular motion? And would you, yes, ma'am, Ms.
I just have one more question. On the Race to the Top, I know very little about that, just what I've picked up in the news. Is there any funding that comes with that that's going to give us any relief?
When we were getting this, Tennessee was one of 2 states that got Race to the Top money. The biggest majority of the money went to Shelby County and Davidson County because they have a higher poverty rate than we do. I think there was $500 million. The state took $250 off the top. Memphis got 100 and something. Nashville got about 50 something. We got about $8 million. But there's also some additional money coming our way, but not enough that it will, I think, impact our budget. Do you agree, Don?
It's about 3.5 is all we got.
Yeah.
Over a 4-year period of time. And it cannot be spent for operating costs per se. That's the question that you're asking.
New program.
It has to be programs, training of teachers and that sort of thing. We have to submit a 4-year budget, which I think that you can see any of them in the state. It's online at the State Department of Education. And you can look at our plan and any other system in the state of Tennessee that you'd like to look at on the first to the top heading.
Okay.
But I think to answer your question, Commissioner, like you said, about $3.5 million over a 4-year period, and it's not anything we can commit to operational budget, so very little help there. Yeah.
If there are no more questions, Mr. Mayor, you have a comment?
There's one more comment. All of you know that the state of Tennessee has balanced their budget for 2 years now, basically off of ERA money. That's over.
Oh, God.
And we benefited, all of us, from that money. So I don't think there's any reasonable expectation that we can expect any real new money. I just hope they continue to fund us at the current levels. They're going to have an extraordinarily difficult time in Nashville, Tennessee, balancing the budget without almost $2 billion of ERA money that they've used to balance the budget for the last 2 years, much of that which has gone into education. So it's going to continue to be a bit of a real stress and difficulty for the state and the BEP funding. So we just have to struggle through that together as well.
Ms. Shelton, could I get you to read that motion one more time, please?
Proceed with the design work utilizing internal borrowing for the Stewart's Creek High School.
Any further comment from anyone before she calls for roll? Ms. Shelton, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Cook?
No.
Commissioner Will Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Turner?
No.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
5-2.
5-2. Okay, I'm sorry.
I want to say this. I am not against it. I want the public to know that I'm not against it. I just want another 30 days on it.
That's, if I can interrupt, that's mine too. This is being new. This is the first time I've had a chance to digest a lot of this information. That's exactly why I voted the way that I voted as well.
I felt, and I think Commissioner Jordan expressed it very well a while ago, that I didn't consider my vote to be approval of a new high school tomorrow, next week, or next month, or January. But I do think it's fair to let them go ahead with the plan. And we can use that at any time, and we'll try to get through this and just see what the next 30 days hold. Yes,
You
sir.
might also ask Ms. Nolan or one of the representatives of the Finance Department to come with some projections, exactly what Commissioner Phillips talked about next month or at some point in time in the near future. And because we're going to vote again on this in January or sometime.
The commission's coming.
Yeah, I mean, but we're going to vote on it before we ever
To
send
go
it
to
to
the
the commission as far as if we proceed with construction. And I would like to, for this committee to get all those numbers, because that's when we make the tough decision, in my opinion. This was a tough enough decision tonight, but it wasn't a binding decision long term. But, you know, in the next few months, we're going to have to make that big decision. And if we could get that presentation to this committee, that'd be much appreciated.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, are you suggesting that we have these numbers available about the Health and Ed Committee meeting, or do we have them available at October 7th? What?
October 7th is the budget committee.
I would like for the
meetings.
budget committee to see them, but I'd also like for this committee to see them next
Okay.
month to inform this bunch.
It'll go before the commission,
Yeah.
before it
Before
comes
it gets
back
to
to
us.
this committee.
Or she might just bring those numbers to the commission.
Well, we will make note that we'll try to do it
Yeah.
by the 7th if possible. We'll have some.
Let me just say, I
That'll be good.
don't think I have to justify my vote. I have a real concern about the implication long-term, the tax rate implication long-term. And as long as we have that information coming to us before this comes before the full commission in October, I'm okay with that. But if we don't have that, then my vote will probably be different at the full commission. So it has to be there. I have to know that.
Well, take note that we will have to make some assumptions. We'll have to assume sales tax revenue grows at 0%, 0.5%, some numbers to show you a range of what could happen. Okay.
I made a number of notes here, and I think just about everything was covered by someone, except I want to mention one thing about Eagle High School. This committee, and there were only 3 of us in the room that were on the committee at that time, back this last spring, we did commit to Eagle High School for some new classrooms and some other things out there, and I'll get a report to you exactly what we did commit to. And basically put, we committed to either piggyback that Eagleville project, which is relatively small, onto the financing for this new high school if it passed. And if the new high school did not pass, then we would go ahead and do that Eagleville project at that time. Now, this committee, and I say that only 3 of us still here, committed at that time to do that. That will have to be undone, and if that is the wishes of the group, and I would hate to see us do that, but because they have a need there as well. But at any rate, I just want the committee to be aware that that financing will have to go onto this high school at that time. And I don't know what else to say about that. And y'all are welcome to comment if you'd like, but I just wanted to remind the committee you're probably not aware of that. Some of you are not aware of that. Is there any other questions for anyone here on the new high school itself, if we choose to build it? There's a lot of information to gather on these things, isn't there? I mean, there's just a lot of things.
It's a good presentation. We're very well prepared.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I want to thank you too, Mr. Gill, and others in your staff for the tour. I know everybody obviously could not go. All your staff couldn't go, I know. And but we had most of the school board there, a number of 9 or 10, maybe 11 commissioners, I think. And I enjoyed it very much. And those that could go, I think, pretty much came. And it was informative, and you passed along the very same figures tonight. And thank you.
I'd like to have a parting shot. First of all, I want to thank you for your vote to allow us to move forward. Jeff and I went to school. I won't tell which one of us is the oldest. Together. And to help you justify your vote, Jeff, and I appreciate you allowing us to proceed. I don't think there's, and the mayor and I don't always agree on our numbers, but we're pretty close on this one, I believe.
We're getting closer and closer.
Yeah, we are. I don't think there's any question if we don't build it, there'll be well over 1,000 kids in portables at those 3 schools in the year 2013. Well over 1,000 kids. And I go back to what I said, are we willing to do that? Same time, you're in a tough position, but I prefer not to do that to kids. It's just not fair to them, it's not fair to teachers, it's not fair to administrators. So I encourage you to help us go forward with this and let us get something up in 2013. We'll manage somehow the next 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any new business from any board member, any committee member? If not, we are adjourned, and thank you so much.